struggle with consistency on sending out newsletters. And I also want to do a blog or a Substack or whatever, but I'm like, my gosh, you can't even do a newsletter consistently. But the reason for that is, unlike you, like, you're offering a service, and that makes so much sense to me about what your content is going to be when you are sending out your newsletters or you're having a podcast or whatever. That makes a lot of sense because you're, offering a service.
Mm-hmm.
I have a problem thinking of content for my newsletter because I don't want everything I send out to be buy this, buy this, buy this. I mean, I don't want to be that person. I know that there's a lot of value, and I do a decent job, I guess, on my Instagram sometimes about like, well, this is who I am or whatever. So I guess my question is some tips or how to, as a creative, how do we come up with, and I don't want to be writing something just to fill a bucket, but how do we find topics that's relatable and shows kind of who we are as a person and as an artist, that also kind of pulls it into the ecosystem of collectors? Am I making any sense?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think it is a struggle. Like, obviously I'm writing educational content. That's a big bucket I can pull from. But I think what I do a lot on Substack, I think will be helpful for you guys. I mean, it can be email, it can be a blog, it can be whatever. But what I do that's a little bit more of a personal newsletter, I have an ongoing draft list, because I find that, like, randomly in the middle of the night, randomly driving my car, randomly doing different things, this could be a notes tab, I'm like, oh, this would be like really interesting to elaborate on. Or if you ever catch yourself like sharing in a story or talking on a reel and being like, wow, I really had to like spew that out in 1 minute, I wish I could go longer. Those types of things kind of can translate well into longer form content. And I think when it comes to emails in particular, obviously you at some point want to sell in there and talk about your work, but I think what actually sells more is people knowing who you are. And so I think it's just sharing your interests. And so if it's a monthly newsletter, let's say, I think that's a good cadence for you guys, for artists in general. I would say you can either format it like it's kind of a template, and it's like, I always write, for you, I know you're big on like living joyfully. I don't think that's the exact phrasing, but joy and all of that. And I think you could almost have like, it could literally be like 3 sentences. It's like, how to live joyfully this month, or like one thing I noticed, and you could just have something like that, an update on what's going on with your art. And maybe, it depends on your brand, but it could be just like little anecdotes. It doesn't have to be long. People don't have that much time. So honestly, shorter is better.
Yeah.
And I think like it even could be, for others that I don't know as much about, like it could be, one paragraph, like, note from the artist. Here's what I'm doing. Here's what I'm thinking about. Summer's crazy. I have kids. Here's how I'm, beating the summer heat with my kids. And it's like an activity, a recipe, and something else. Like, there's a lot of ways to go about this, but I think it's figuring out what are you uniquely interested in. People just want to feel like they know you. And I think when we hear that, we think we need to be like this really polished version of ourselves, and like a creator and like a content like person. It's like, no, you can just be yourself. So I think a good starting point is figuring out what are some topics you would want to cover. So the way I've heard it before is like, if your marketing strategy, like I've heard it on Instagram, but we'll say your email is like a morning show, what are your different segments? Like, if you were a morning show, like what are your different segments that still fit the broader kind of topic? And I find that really helpful, because then you can skew a little bit just away from selling and buy my art, buy my art, buy my art. And you can also fold in like, my art's really colorful because I'm a really colorful person, and here's how to like live colorfully. I don't know.
You do that.
Yeah, you can like put a twist on it. And like, I think, I mean, I know you, personally, but I think like what you did with your little traveling backpack and like all the places it went, like that could turn off into like a whole little story. Like, here's the 3 places I went this month and why I went. Like, we don't really have to overthink it. And I also think the more you do it, it becomes easier and easier, and you'll start to have that drafts tab of like, I think this would be interesting for my audience. I think this would be interesting. And it's just, you kind of have to get in the habit again by just doing it.
Right. And it's almost like when you train yourself to look for evidence of fill in the blank, you end up seeing it everywhere. I guess.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so like when what you're saying, like by having the drafts tab, by having that, and it's it's already set in your mind to be on the lookout for
Right.
things. They're like, oh yeah, let me just put that in that's a great tangible thing I can do. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Glad I could help.
A little bit piggybacking off of that. I think I'm off mute. Mine's just slow. Hey, Valley, I was going to say that when I kind of work backwards, newsletter is a big piece of content that you can pull 8, 10, 12 social media ideas from. So like doing the work on a newsletter gives you so much content and stuff too to write about, whether it's on social media or blog or on your website, but you've got those big paragraphs that you can turn into bullet lists or, a reel with all the bullet lists. So like that one piece seems like a lot of work and it's daunting for me, but I just started saving newsletters that made me open it and were easy to read. And I'm like, I can copy this framework on my own.
Yeah. That's
a
huge.
great,
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I also think from a marketing standpoint, not being afraid to be really repetitive, like pull things from your newsletter to your Instagram, to your TikTok, to your Pinterest, whatever. That's actually what big brands do. Like I know you hear like, oh, it takes us so many times to see it, but like literally that can be seeing the same photo multiple times. Like I will write a newsletter and then I will use the exact photos for my Instagram. I will use exact quotes on my Instagram. I will make a reel about what it is about. And that doesn't take very long, but goes a really long way. And all of a sudden, from an outside perspective, people are like, oh, she's on brand. Like she's doing one thing. She's not trying to come up with something completely new every day. And it actually makes you look like you have a marketing team that's helping you do this. And it's easier.